In this podcast, I explore stories of darkness from history, myth, and legend. I am Dennis Sarah, and this is Evil. Collin tapped out his literacy homework on his laptop. Sitting on his bed was his favorite place to do work. No distractions in his room, except, of course, for his phone. He liked listening to music while he studied. The music helped him focus and lock out the outside world. His cat, Shadow, lay curled up next to him, taking one of his several daily naps. Collin was a good kid, studious enough, respectful enough. Well, to say he was good is to say he was a typical 11-year-old. Not quite a know-it-all teenager yet. The music coming from the plug-in speakers of Collin's phone was interrupted by an alert tone. Collin glanced at his phone. A picture of his friend Jack appeared. He had sent a message to Collin. Collin sighed and continued to work on his homework. He knew he had to finish his literacy homework before he could play a game online with Jack. His mother was home, and she would take away his phone if she caught him playing a game before his homework was done. The music started up again, and Collin continued to work. Shadow continued to sleep. Another alert tone interrupted the music. It was a message from Jack again. Collin rolled his eyes and whispered, "Come on." Collin's mother, Katie, appeared in his bedroom door. She had come home early from work and was removing her earrings as she looked in on him. Collin nodded. "Jack wants to try the new game." Katie smiled. "After dinner, if you're done with your homework." She walked down the hall to her room and shut the door. When she was down the hall, Collin snatched the phone and shot a quick message to Jack. He let Jack know he would contact him after dinner. Collin dove back into his homework and rushed to finish before dinner. As Collin was finishing, he heard the front door open and his mom shout from downstairs, "Collin, I got pizza. Your favorite pepperoni thin crust." "All right." Collin closed his laptop, gave Shadow a quick pet, and stepped quickly down the hall. Not running, because that's not allowed in the house. He could smell the pizza from the hall upstairs, and that made him hurry a little more. Collin passed through the hall where the pictures of him and his parents from different stages of life hung on the wall. Pictures of his parents when they were younger, and baby pictures of himself. As he started to pass his parents' dark room, a hand reached out and grabbed his arm, yanking him into the room. He started to yell an objection, but a hand firmly covered his mouth. Collin struggled and wiggled, trying to loose the hand on his mouth. He was spun around, and Collin found himself face to face with his mother. Even in the dark room, he recognized her. She had one hand on his left arm and the other up to her mouth. "Shh." Katie's eyes were dilated. Her breathing was heavy, and she struggled to keep it silent. From downstairs, they heard Katie shout, "Collin, what do you want to drink with your pizza?" Collin's eyes widened. How could he hear his mother calling him from downstairs while she stood in front of him upstairs? Although she had a hand on his arm, tightly on his arm, he reached out and touched her arm. She was real. She was in a panic. Her eyes darted back and forth, looking for an answer. Collin shook his head and he tried to speak. Katie put a hand gently over his mouth and whispered, "I heard it too." "Who is that?" Collin whispered. Katie shook her head and motioned for Collin to be quiet. Her eyes narrowed as she leaned towards the bedroom door, pointing her ear into the open hallway. "I don't know. Someone in our house is pretending to be me." She sounds just like you. Collin, the pizza's getting cold. Get down here, the downstairs mom shouted. Just like you. Collin, we have to get out of here. We have to call the police. My phone is in my room. Collin stepped into the hallway. His mother pulled him back into the master bedroom. Collin turned to face her, expecting her to say something. Encouragement, a plea, a suggestion, something. But her eyes darted back and forth, and her mouth was frozen at the beginning of a word that she could not will herself to release. What? He whispered. The sound of the front door had Collin and Katie turn their heads towards the hallway. They listened as someone came into the house. Pizza? Great, I'm starved, said Collin's father, Jeff. Hang on, said the downstairs mom. Change out of your work clothes and wash your hands before you touch that pizza. The bottom stair creaked under Jeff's weight as he started to make his way up to the second floor. Katie, still grasping Collin's left arm, quickly made her way to Collin's bedroom. He was pulled with. Collin was not sure if he wanted to go or stay, as he was about to say, "We have to tell Dad," but he never had a chance to form the sentence. Collin and Katie were in his bedroom. She carefully closed the bedroom door and locked it. Jeff was halfway up the stairs when the downstairs mom shouted, "And tell Collin to get down here to get some dinner." Katie put her weight against the door. Collin leaned towards Katie and whispered, "Mom, we have to tell Dad." Katie shook her head and still had a grasp of Collin's arm. They heard Jeff come up the stairs and close the master bedroom door. Katie and Collin leaned up against his door and tried to hear Jeff moving around from Collin's bedroom. Collin put his back against the door, and Katie stood in front of him. Katie's right hand still had a firm grip on Collin's left arm, and her left hand slowly moved closer to his face. She spread her fingers across his right cheek. Katie looked directly into Collin's eyes as her hand slid down his face towards his neck. A slight, almost invisible smile began to form on her lips as her hand made contact with his neck. Her eyes rolled up and changed. Collin shot her a confused look. Then Katie's hand clamped down on Collin's throat. His eyes bulged under the pressure. Collin struggled, but her grip was strong, unnaturally strong. She whipped Collin to the ground while maintaining her grip on his throat and arm. He tried to twist out of the grasp, but through the struggle she managed to slide to his back while continuing to choke him. She moved her legs around his waist and squeezed. Collin struggled to breathe and crawled towards his bed trying to get away. She stayed attached to him. Collin noticed her legs and arms were becoming scaled, as if her skin became translucent, and her true self was revealed. He felt a forked snake-like tongue flitter across his cheek. Jeff opened the master bedroom door, crossed the hall, and knocked at Collin's door. "Pizza's getting cold." Collin struggled to say something, to signal his father, but her grip was too strong. If Collin could just hang on, his dad should come in and see the two struggling on the floor. Collin twisted and fought back. Jeff knocked again. "Buddy, you coming?" "I'll be down in 10 minutes, Dad. I'm just finishing my homework." It was Collin's voice, but it was not from Collin. She had said the words. She mimicked Collin's voice perfectly. "Okay," Jeff said and went down the stairs. Collin panicked. He did not have much oxygen left. He continued to struggle and crawl towards his bed. He could feel her chuckle as she was clinging to his back. The dark room lit up as Jack sent another message to the phone sitting on Collin's bed. He managed to crawl to his bed. Feeling underneath for a weapon, he knew he didn't have any real weapons, but anything that might help. Looking back from the darkness under the bed were a small pair of cat eyes. Shadow must have retreated under the bed when the two began to struggle. Collin reached out for his cat. He was desperate. But if he could squeeze the cat, he might hiss loud enough and madly scramble around, making noise. He didn't want to hurt the cat, but he had to do something before he blacked out. As Collin struggled for the cat, he could only manage to annoy Shadow. The cat moved to turn away from Collin and exit from under the bed in the opposite direction. As Shadow turned, Collin caught his tail. In a desperate move, Collin yanked the cat by his tail and threw him at the creature trying to kill him. Shadow gave out an angry hiss and lashed out in every direction. His claws caught Collin and the creature with several angry slashes. The creature spasmed in pain as Shadow caught it in the eye with a wild slice of its claw. Shadow bolted towards the door. The creature's grip loosened from the sudden attack, and Collin rolled away from it. He screamed, "Dad!" Collin scrambled to the bedroom door. He unlocked and opened it in one swift motion. He and Shadow ran down the stairs. Collin almost tripped on Shadow, but managed not to fall, just stumble. Jeff and Katie were in the kitchen as Shadow darted past them and was followed by a screaming Collin. Their eyes widened as their panicked son embraced his father. What is it?" Jeff asked Collin. Collin stuttered and rambled. He mentioned Mom and hiding and creature, but he was in a state of hysteria, and forming coherent sentences was too difficult. His mind simply outraced his mouth, and his parents could not understand what he was saying. As they tried to calm Collin, they could hear footfalls coming down the stairs. Katie turned and saw Collin's friend Jack at the bottom of the stairs. She noticed he was wearing the same t-shirt he had on in the picture from Collin's phone. Jack also had a scratch across his eyebrow. "Jack, what is going on?" Katie said. "Oh, I'm sorry. I came over to surprise Collin and I jumped out of his closet. I scared him and the cat," pointing to his scratch. I didn't mean to." Collin tightened his embrace on his father. "Well, I'm sorry. I'm gonna head out." Jack made his way to the front door. Just before closing the door, he turned back and said, "See you later, Collin." That was an original story by me called Mimic. I'd like to send out a special thank you to Caveman Ridge and Molly Onyx for the reviews on iTunes. I do appreciate it. Evil Podcast can be found on evilpodcast.com. On the site, you can get past episodes, as well as links to iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and all the places that carry our podcast. Evil Podcast can sure use your support through patreon.com/evilpodcast, a link on evilpodcast.com. If you go there and just donate $1 a month, you get access to the private Facebook group. In that group, I put the episodes out early, so you can hear them before everyone else. And you'd have my appreciation as well. I sure could use the support. Through the website, there's also a link to our store. You can buy t-shirts there that say, "I support evil." Check them out. As the podcast grows in popularity, I'll be getting sponsors. Keep a lookout for them. I usually try to get a good deal from the sponsors so that I can pass it on to the listeners. Well, that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening to Evil Podcast. And remember, be good.